fact or fiction?
NFL season win totals released yesterday evening by BetMGM. Two teams atop the list, the Buffalo Bills and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are each projected to win 11.5 games. So fact or fiction, Chelsea, you're more inclined to take the over with Tom Brady and the Bucs.
Ooh, I'm not sure. I think this is a tough one. Looking at strength of schedule, because the Bucs are playing in an easier division, you would think that their schedule would be a little easier, but no, they have the fourth toughest schedule in the NFL next season. So I think based on that and the fact that I just feel like they are losing steam since they have won their Super Bowl. They were playing in the now. They were signing guys to those contracts, signed their entire team back from that Super Bowl winning roster. And I just think we're seeing the pieces continue to fall. So I'm going to go fiction.
I'm going to say fact here, just by virtue of the fact that division that the Bucs play in is just so bad. I mean, it's just awful. And I understand the Bucs have a tough schedule when you look at the rest of their schedule, but when you get the Panthers twice a year, when you get the Saints twice a year, you get the Falcons twice a year, and then you can beat up on, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. The Browns are beatable. You can beat the Cardinals. There's some other games in there. The Seahawks, you could win that game. And then some of these more competitive games, the Steelers, that's winnable. I just believe because the AFC is so hyper competitive this year compared to the NFC, you have to give the edge to the Bucs here. So I'm going to say fact.
I'm going to go with the Bills because I just think they're the better football team. As much as I know Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback, the Bucs have this pedigree going. The Bills, the Bucs will have the easier schedule probably. I just think that the Bills are the better football team and the best assembled football team in the NFL. I would go with Buffalo. On the flip side, the teams with the lowest win totals are the Houston Texans and Atlanta Falcons, each at 4.5. Fact or fiction, Jenks, you'd rather take the under on the Falcons than the Texans?
I sure would. Who is the quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons right now? I honestly don't know the answer. Who is it? Does anyone know?
Marcus Mariota.
Oh, that's right. A guy that has proven that he can't stay healthy. A guy that's already had a chance with the Titans and didn't get it done. He's been a backup for a reason. The Falcons weren't good anyway, and now they've got a downgraded quarterback. I know Matt Ryan was not at his peak, certainly. He's in his later years, but he's still an effective quarterback compared to Marcus Mariota. Meanwhile, the Texans showed some fight at the end of last season, and Davis Mills, to me, was one of the surprise stories in the NFL last year. I understand that they drafted him to be a backup quarterback, but he was second in the league as far as rookie quarterbacks are concerned behind Mac Jones. So if I'm fading one of these teams, it's the Falcons. Fact.
I think I'm on that side as well. Just looking at the schedules, and the Texans have the misfortune of playing the AFC West, but they also get to play the NFC East. So I think those two kind of cancel out. And you're right. I don't have a ton of faith in Marcus Mariota even finishing the season. And this is a team where the other aspects of the offense aren't good either. One of the worst teams at running the football last season as well. And Marcus Mariota had Derrick Henry and still was not good with the Titans, a team that averaged 19 points a game when Marcus Mariota was the quarterback. So no, I don't have any faith in the Falcons. I at least believe that there's some kind of upside with the Texans. I don't love either of these teams, obviously, but I think I will take a risk on the upside being more with Davis Mills and the Texans.
Yeah, I like the upside with the Texans a little more from a football perspective for specifically their roster. Sorry, I can't speak. I agree that they have the better quarterback in place, or at least the more upside in place. However, I think they made a huge error in firing David Culley, and I do not believe in Lovie Smith. I think Lovie Smith has been brought in kind of as the fall guy so that they can finally have the opportunity to make the real hire that they've wanted to make for a few years in Josh McCown next offseason when it's more politically palatable, probably. That's just how I feel about the way that this team is operating. So I'm going to actually go with the Falcons because I think they're going to be more interested in winning games. However, I think both of these likely are going under. The AFC West is the toughest division top to bottom, all four teams within 2 games of each other. The AFC North could be the same depending on where the Browns get slotted. We're still waiting on their win total, but fact or fiction, Jenks, the odds makers got it right. The AFC West is the toughest division to win.
Yes, no question about that. This is going to be, It's not going to be the black and blue division, but if you just look at the improvements across the board, first of all, it helps that the Chiefs took a step back, right? Losing Tyreek Hill was just a massive loss. I know they got a huge return for that, but you're talking about the fastest guy, or arguably the fastest guy in the NFL, who has been a headache for opposing defenses for years. And you can't tell me that because they signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling that suddenly they have a guy who's going to match Tyreek Hill. They're not. The Broncos have Russell Wilson. The Chargers are loaded. They signed a J.C. Jackson on defense, so they're going to be improved on that side of the football. And then you have the Raiders bringing in Devontae Adams. Remember, David Carr had a career year last year. So he's going to have a number one target, a guy he went to school with for the first time in his entire career. And as I said earlier in the show, if you're looking at receiving cores exclusively, you can make an argument that the Chiefs, who are favorites to win the division, have the worst receiving core out of all 4 teams in that division. These teams are going to beat up on each other. It's going to be hyper competitive. This is a fact.
I think so too, just because looking at the AFC North, usually the Steelers, automatically you think to yourself, oh, the Steelers are going to be good. But guess who their quarterback is? Mitch Trubisky. I think it might be a rebuilding year for the Steelers, who are perennially usually pretty good in that conference. The Bengals might be due for some regression, even though they got Lyle Collins to actually protect Joe Burrow this year. So maybe they will be even better. Who knows? But looking at the AFC West, I think you try to look at the other side and say, which divisions might be tougher? I think we might be sleeping on the NFC West. Again, this was the toughest division in football just last season. And as much as we've seen about the quarterback controversy with the 49ers, they were still a good team despite Jimmy Garoppolo throwing about 2 picks every game and being banged up for the last half of the season. So we're talking about the Rams coming off a Super Bowl win, and the Cardinals, a team that I think can be good next year as well if they get all that drama with Kyler Murray sorted out. So I think the AFC West is probably the toughest, but I don't think it's by a long shot. I think there's other divisions in football that are certainly going to be tough as well.
No, I'm pretty firmly believing that the AFC West is the toughest division to win. I mean, it has the best quarterbacks. It has, I think, the best top to bottom rosters. I think the Broncos, like, if you're betting on the way this finishes right now, the Broncos' most likely finishing position is probably 3rd, which is insane to think about because they might have one of the 5 to 6 best rosters in the NFL. So there you go. Like, do 4 of the 10 best rosters exist in the AFC West? I think the answer is probably yes. And because I think that, I think it's rather easily the toughest division to win, maybe in the history of the NFL, not just this season.
Ooh.
What do we think about
words. I like it, though.
Honestly, I think some people, the hype is just going up and up for the Broncos, but I think there are some sabotage factors. Like Russell Wilson is acclimating to a new team. They've got a new head coach who, oh, by the way, has not performed well as a head coach. Josh McDaniels doesn't have the best track record of success as a head coach. So I think there are some sabotage factors, especially when you are playing in that tough of a division. So what is the chances? I know the question was, how tough is the division? But when we look at these win totals, do you think that we see, this division cannibalizing itself just because it is so tough?
I don't know if it cannibalizes itself, but I do think that, I mean, you can make the argument that if you make it through this division, you're going to be battle tested because these teams, I mean, from top to bottom, every team is going to have a chance to beat the other team, no matter who is favored, no matter who is the dog. You're not going to see these monster spreads, which we normally see with Kansas City. I guess it's a small possibility, but I think the one thing that we do have to look at when it comes to this division is that because it is so competitive, because not every single team from this division will make the playoffs, there is a possibility that a very good team could be left out of the postseason.
We had this same exact discussion last year when talking about the NFC West. And I thought to myself, it might be tough for these teams to go deep in the playoffs because the division is so tough. But what do you know? They produced the Super Bowl winner and also the Niners, who went to Lambeau and beat the Packers. So maybe it's not a bad thing when you play in a really tough division.
How much are you a believer in Russell Wilson as the quarterback of the Broncos? I know he struggled at the back end of last season, but Shea mentioned how good their roster is from top to bottom, and that is no joke. He has the tools now on offense. He has, I think, what will be a better offensive system, and they certainly have a very good defense. the really big factor there, the real threat, the sabotage factor, which you always talk about, is how difficult that division is. But would you put any future money on the Broncos, or do you think that because that division is so tough that it's just not worth it?
God, I need to stop myself because I said Josh McDaniels, coach of the Broncos. He's definitely the coach of the Raiders. He was the coach of the Broncos, but I needed to correct myself there. Who's
No
the coach of
worries.
the Broncos? I need to figure this out.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Okay. Yeah, because they signed him because everybody thought that he was trying to get Aaron Rodgers, the OC for the Packers. Okay. Sorry. Chelsea's been in NBA mode.
Well, also, and now you've got a guy, an offensive coordinator from Green Bay who comes in, which should immediately help Russell Wilson as well. So I understand you're talking about a guy who doesn't have that head coaching experience, but you are talking about someone who has had a great deal of success with Aaron Rodgers, knows how to coach and manage fantastic elite quarterbacks, and certainly Russell Wilson is that. So am I overselling the Broncos here? I just love the fact that they made this move, and I thought it was the perfect fit there in Colorado.
I also think this division has some of the best home field advantages in football. We talk about the Broncos just because the altitude, also it gets really loud at Mile High, and also the Chiefs, Arrowhead Stadium, super loud, and then the Raiders fans, now that they have a decent team, I think that's going to be a tough place to play as well. Not going to say anything about the Chargers. Don't think that's a tough place to play, but talking about divisions and tough places to play, I think this has got to be one of the highest ones on the list for me as well.
I'm with you. I cannot wait. It makes me really excited about the upcoming NFL season just because who knew it was going to shake out this way? And that's one of the reasons why the NFL is so popular, because even during the offseason, Chelsea, as we know, they're always making huge moves and huge headlines.